Hello all and welcome back to the special collaborative series between Purica and Truehope. If you joined us for part 1, you heard the foundational stories, how Purica and Truehope came to be, the convictions that drove them forward, and the challenges they face standing up for natural health choice in Canada. In part 2, the conversation expands. Jason and David turn their focus toward the present and the future of the natural health industry, where it's headed, what's at stake, and why education, transparency, and courage matter now more than ever. They explore the responsibility of companies to do their customers, the growing demand for natural health solutions, and the role of leadership in shaping a more honest, empowered health landscape. This is not just a reflection on the past, it is a call forward, a discussion about protecting choice, advancing science, and ensuring Canadians continue to have access to natural health options without fear or censorship. Once again, nothing is off limits and everything is grounded in truth. So let's continue that conversation. Enjoy the show.
Right. And what we're talking about here, if you want to put it simple, between what David said, modern and alternative forms of medicine. Traditional medicines are the medicines of tradition, so they hijack that term. Mm-hmm. But modern medicine is germ theory based on pasteurization. So basically the pathogen or toxin is impinging on you, and we need to either basically stimulate something, suppress something, cut it out, or burn it.
Yep.
And then the ancient way is more based on terrain theory, which was Béchamp also was trying to expound, and that's based on basically cleanse, nourish, and balance. It's basically the health of the terrain helps you to navigate the world, which is nature. The other way is basically saying nature is not good enough and we need to, you can integrate both things, but the more profound way to deal with things from the natural industry is all coming back with a vengeance. Mm-hmm. But you're going through the time when that's starting to happen, and the pharmaceutical industry and their captured, organization of disease, they are recognizing it. It's been happening for quite some time. It just didn't happen the last 5 years. I think the last 5 years was really an attempt to try to get back some stability into that and to try to demonize all of us that talk about anything to do with ancient ways and all these traditions that are alive still today. And it failed because now there's too many, all these things are happening. And it's like, again, the lashing tiger. They're falling. We're coming up. So all of us, if we start talking, that's what I feel. If we all can start talking, be that mosquito. Mm-hmm. You do make a difference. Is mm-hmm. that we'll light each other up, and then it's going to accelerate the process of something good happening rather than getting stuck in all the negatives that are happening to us. Because I feel we both smile on it. We both smile. I think it takes a deep faith in something a lot bigger, and both of us have that. I don't want to segue out of the rest of the story. Yep. To keep on keeping on, which is
perspective
what
is crucial.
Sticking your talk in this. Yeah,
your life's perspective is absolutely crucial in relation to how you approach every situation and whether or not you can have the tenacity to plow through.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So your choice of care we're at.
So now, and one of the judges actually comes out. He's known as Rook the Crook amongst certain crowds. He's the second top judge in all of Alberta, and he signs himself to our case as soon as we start to expose the corruption. And initially, his job clearly was get me to shut up.
Yes.
Get me to shut up. So now we're trying to sue them to get money back to afford a lawyer, saying, yes, we've already paid for all this. Yeah. You guys, by your own fault, based on the Supreme Court's admission, put us into this state of hardship, and now you want us to come back for another trial? Yeah. Well, pay us for the first trial. You guys messed it up, and I went to jail wrongfully. Pay up, right? No, wouldn't have it. And so he oversaw that case, and he would yell at me often whenever I would bring something up, and it was relevant. It wasn't like I was stepping out of line, but anytime that it would expose any corruption on the record, he would get triggered and he'd yell, and he would try to intimidate me. And I picked up on it after about the 5th time.
That sounds like COVID. What people did.
Right.
Call you names and yell at you and
shut you down. Right. Shut you down, intimidate you, whatever.
Childlike behavior.
Yeah. Very childlike, as he's foaming from the mouth, probably from some medications he's on. Literally. Guy should have retired about 10 years earlier, but he's still there. He actually just retired a couple of years ago. But so now we're going through this situation where we're about to face our second trial, and doing so not represented. Last minute, Sean Buckley steps in to help my wife, as well as 2 other lawyers. I'm self-representing though, and a bunch of evidence comes out. Amazing evidence, but is the media reporting on it? No, still not reporting on it. But that's okay, because at that point in time I realized if I don't tell my story, someone else will. And this is incredibly abnormal to see somebody who's been criminally charged and even wrongfully convicted to then become the source of media. So I'm live streaming after every single day of court to say, this is what the media isn't going to be telling you, but here's what came out. And end up with a large following during that time, highlighting, look, this is a medical case. This is choice of care. This is all about, your parental rights and your medical choice in Canada. And they're trying to erode that and say, you only have one path to go down. And they actually started using the terminology, there's only one criminal code approved standard of care. And that's pharmaceutical medicine, right? Everything else is outside of the criminal code. You can be held liable.
Deficiency of pharmaceuticals.
Right, exactly. So anyways, we ended up winning. We ended up winning the trial. It was splayed out over 3 months. It wasn't a solid 3 months, but it was an absolute gong show. The whole thing just made a mockery of the supposed justice system. But we ended up hearing the words not guilty. And then that judge got crucified over it, literally. Well, not literally, but his career was done for a while. He had to go through, he didn't take on any other cases. He had to go through courses because he was now being called a racist because he didn't take the Nigerian pathologist evidence, the one who falsified the autopsy report. So he got lambasted and the system hung him out to dry. We would end up in the Alberta Appeals Court again, and the top justice of all of Alberta, Catherine Fraser, would appoint herself to the case, and they would write up a scathing report on us that would take them once again the better part of a year. And it was fraught with all sorts of vaccine stuff, which wasn't even they had no evidence to rely on. Now, this is March 8th, 2021. Now, remember, COVID shot just came out a few months before that, and there's a bunch of hesitancy. So all of a sudden, they rendered this decision equating vaccines to being necessaries of life. But that wasn't argued. It wasn't argued in the first trial. It wasn't argued in the second trial because the Crown went away from that because we'd shut it down with expert evidence. It wasn't argued in the appeal. They literally pulled this information out of thin air, injected it in there, and now you have the most egregious legal precedent coming from one of the top courts in Canada establishing vaccines as a necessary of life out of thin air. Now, I don't know if anybody can cite the case because you go one layer deep, you recognize the whole thing's corrupt. There's no substance to it. So it doesn't matter that it's coming from the top court in Alberta, from the top justice in Alberta, that would normally be taken with a great level of weight across the whole country. The fact of the matter is, if a challenge ever came up against it, the question could be asked, where did they get this information from? Because it wasn't argued.
Well, and this is, again, it's not conspiratorial, because if you ask a lot of good RCMP folks, which we both have friends in the RCMP, is the justice system fair? Is it for the people? And just face to face, do that. No matter what they say, you can see what almost all of them think. Their hands are tied. All these good people trying to do good things, watching criminals surface up and again. The perps get all the rights, and the people who are perpetrated against, the victims or whatever, they're left with nothing and completely disheartened. Because the whole idea of the justice system, you think in a fair and reasonable, just country, should be about justice for anyone. And then again, it goes back to the foundations of the Western world in Greek philosophy. There's no way that Socrates would have agreed when they dialogued about justice and what does justice mean. And most of the dialectics became about words and defining words. When you define the word, would they equate today's system of justice with justice? No, not at all. It would be a 180 flip. It would be about rich and powerful people ruling, and all these networks of people and all these people. Again, bringing up the Epstein files, that's showing you that the corruption is being propagated because people have stuff on people. And they're not willing. They'd rather watch a whole country burn than get caught for some of the things they've done.
Absolutely.
And this is the idea of this hyper-individualistic society versus the other extreme, a hive mentality, which could be on the communist kind of side, is they're all BS. They're all just trying to manipulate you in different kinds of ways according to the sway of the public opinion and how they're moving you. And in this case, to watch this and to go through it like you and I have, the justice system, yeah, you can win, but you have to play it really, really hard and figure out how you can possibly make something fall because the cards are stacked against you. Do we want to keep listening to that? No, we don't. I think we need to have a massive uprising of people saying, no, I'm not listening to that anymore. And the head of the snake has to be addressed. And the head of the snake is, layers deep, but it has to do with money and power and weird things. So I feel like we're just addressing at this level, you and I. We got caught up in it. Did it push us down? Because all the stuff that's happened to you when I watched it, most people would admit they would have quit. Like they would have dropped, you could have committed suicide or just drop your marriage would fall apart, all that kind of stuff. Easy to happen to see what happened to you, how emotional that was and what they did on purpose to you. And the forms of psychopathy inside that, people with no empathy, just trying to destroy you in a survival kind of way of thinking that's based on them pushing this divide and conquer constantly. Yep. And I feel like people though, I feel like people are waking up more and more and more to this. They know, it's not a just way of being. And Canada's not the Canada it was in the 1970s. Not even close, by the way, for any of you who are born after that. It's not even close to the same country. It's so obvious to anybody you start thinking backwards. And the media is not the media. So what is true? The thing you can find is go back in here and take back the power and start actually thinking for yourself and listening. Do you believe this person? Or do you just listen to what's said about this person?
Right.
So go ahead. Sorry.
I
keep cutting you off.
No. You just introduced really the meat and potatoes of this. We've been talking about the issues, right? Health Canada. Yep. We've touched on a little bit of what we're doing in relation to changing lives, saving lives, blessing people.
Yeah.
But now this is the information here that's going to be the most empowering because you just asked the question, right? Did it keep you down, right? Did it knock you down? Yeah. Whatever. Knocked down, absolutely. I mean, the loss of a son, knocked down, pummeled, right? Questioning life, like literally questioning the meaning of life.
Yep.
You want to talk about paradigm shattering stuff, lose a child and then start to try to make heads and tails of what life's about, right? And it was a beautiful experience in the end. Don't get me wrong, like going through hell sometimes is what it requires before you start to see the light.
Yep.
But going through these circumstances, 10 years of it, because now we're 2019 appeal, 2021, the appeal happens, vaccine precedent, blah, blah, blah. We're now going for trial again. But there was a saving grace in all of that finally by June of 2021, they had to drop the case. And the reason being is that medical examiner that held everything in his hands with that falsified autopsy report was under credential fraud investigation in both the state of Kansas and the state of Indiana now. He had fled down to the States after we started to expose a lot of the corruption surrounding him. And he ended up on his own criminal charges on June 21st of 2021. On June 22nd of 2021, we got a call from the Crown saying they're staying the charges. It was done. It was a saving grace that kept us from going to a third trial. That was going to be incredibly disadvantageous to us. The appeal court had already dictated what evidence was necessary and what wasn't. They'd cut off our defense. We were going to jail. Literally, we were going to go to jail. That's what it looked like. And we were just saying nothing short of a miracle is what it's going to take. And we got that miracle when all of a sudden that medical examiner ended up in deep water for his corruption. So now we're going through this though, wrongfully convicted, very arguably, I can't think of anybody else that would even be up on the same level, but the most hated couple in Canada based on the prolific media. No,
that was true. It was
persistent, the death threats, everything.
I almost hated you.
Yeah. except that I still remember it. Hey, you funded me. Yes, you funded. Yes, I appreciate that. Right. You were supportive. You were amongst the supporters that we got probably about $350,000 was external coming in to support the first leg of the battle. And that was beautiful because it was needed at first because we weren't in an emotional position to be able to self-represent. But by the time 2019 came around, my wife wasn't, and I don't blame her.
Yes.
She's a woman. I'm the protector and provider. And she no longer had my protection because the Crown segregated the case so that she would be pinpointed in certain areas that I couldn't answer to. And they did it intentionally because they knew that we were self-representing. So now they were going for what they thought was an easier target.
So when you say that too, this is interesting. On traditional, say the female or passive aspects and the male active aspects, uses a metaphor. Because I want to clarify how we see is that if you look at why did they use those as metaphors, because that was traditional in more of a natural woman and a natural man, but they both have negative and positive poles.
Right.
Like a man could go towards violence, but it could also be piercing and strong and confident, right? And a woman is more all-inclusive and open, and there's wisdom in that. But if you force that, if you constrict that natural tendency to be open in that passive, open, and wise way of a woman, then it can get into fear mode, and then that's not good. So they were intentionally trying to push the buttons of the feminine side in both men and women, because you see a lot of men who you would traditionally think now in ancient times they would look at a lot of the way that men are behaving and say, whoa, what's going on here? Because it's basically a negative female aspect of the pole. So in each of us, we have feminine and masculine tendencies within us in the positive and negative pole. It's just metaphor.
Yep. But
it seems that a lot of things have shifted to a hyper feminized state that's not actually a positive feminine state. It's the constricted fear, like you're armoring yourself, like a stress response. So basically, and you also see then the lashing out of the negative male side, that starts to have lashing out and stuff. So you have both the constricted fear and you have the lashing out. So both the negative poles of masculine and feminine. So what we're talking about is recognizing in both of our scenarios, because we both went through heavy stuff in the last while, is that our wives had to go through that with us, and that we appreciate that kind of sacred feminine aspect that's inclusive and open and wise, and to put members of your family under the kind of thing, because you and I both had that piercing, like, I'm going to go, I just go, whatever. I don't know why I'm going to go. Is that you have to recognize that we were putting, through the situations that we were put in, that by standing, that it was also putting our loved ones under duress.
Oh, yeah.
But we had the support of them, but also they had to back off a bit. Otherwise, they would have been thrown into a state of frenzy and fear, and then it would armor in your body, and it takes a lot to get out, which I think probably with Colette and with Anna, they both have, I think, are intense, so that they're both probably letting go over time that occurred through all of this, because it's a natural thing. You and I are probably more like wolves, like basically you want to get in the fray if you think it's the right thing to do for other people, and that other people are going to benefit. Also, if you're put under attack, obviously you're defending yourself, but at the same time, it becomes over time, including with your case and ours, that you feel, I just need to stand up.
Yep.
Like, what is my life for? What's the purpose of my life? If we've come to these stages in our lives, both of us, there's similarities. You're obviously younger than me, but we both have similarities. Is that, what's the point of this all then? Is it just so that you can individually survive and everything? Or is it actually to be as purposeful as you can in a helpful way? And I feel like that's what gave us, why I said this all, is that's what I feel for me, gave me the ability to keep standing.
Yep.
Because I felt like it was another thing that was coming through me that really wants to help. My whole life is, and then I start to recognize everything in my life I wanted to help, even when I was acting in selfish ways and everything. It's because I wanted to help, and then you get frustrated, and then over time you start to realize, well, I can do that and do that. You get less frustration and more of this openness, even the feminine side coming out of you, but also with that ferocious, their piercing kind of way of behaving. Sorry,
there's this aspect.
I keep saying sorry.
Yeah, don't apologize. I'm loving this, and you're stimulating some thought processes that are along, more philosophical lines. But when we take a look at when we're encountered with these circumstances, right, a threat.
Yeah.
There's generally two things that we will examine. The one comes first and foremost, and it's self-preservation.
Yep.
Right. Now, if you get stuck there, it's myopic. You're not looking at the big picture. You're not looking down the road as to right. And it's completely self-serving.
Yep.
Right. And it's dangerous. It can be very dangerous.
Yep. And it can be natural when you're in that mode of behavior through your time, that even to keep going. The unnatural part of it is to keep going with that kind of thing. Is to, once you're out of the danger.
Yep. The fight or flight.
Reflect in a more holistic way.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah. Looking at the big picture, right?
Yep.
Now, me aside, my preservation, how is this decision going to impact everyone around me? And we were actually faced with that in 2016, right after they had dropped the vaccine portion. Before we got into trial proper, they'd seen the evidence. They actually came out with a plea bargain. Now, Colette and I had testified for the first time in a delay hearing. They were supposed to throw the trial out because it went well beyond the bounds of delay with, from 2012 to 2016. They were supposed to throw it out. but they made an exception for our case. But they had us testify, or Sean had us testify. So they now got to see how we were going to present. And they didn't like what they saw because they saw that we weren't a bunch of nutcases. So they actually, the day following our testifying during this hearing, about 2 weeks before the trial, they came up with a plea bargain. And they said, if David pleads guilty, we'll give him 18 months probation. And Colette will get off scot-free, and we'll even pay for some trauma counseling because they saw that she was in tears as she was recollecting these events leading up to where we were in 2016 now. It looked like a pretty sweet deal, right? And especially when I'm looking at it from a self-preservation point, I'm like, well, I could roll the dice, and I think we're going to win because we shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
But it's going to cost me easily $100,000 over the next month. Easy.
That's definitely something they consider.
Right. And so I'm looking at that and I'm like, this is a pretty safe bet. And Colette gets off scot-free. I've just preserved us. But then when I started considering the whole of it and that this was going to create a precedent, it's going to be a snare for the next parent down the road, I said, I can't do it.
Yep.
I can't do it. I can't in good conscience. I will smile for a moment or two, but it will sit on my conscience for the rest of my life that I took the easy way out and I gave them a portion of what they wanted, and that I didn't go down fighting like I should have, not just for me and my wife, but for the very fundamental principles of liberty here in Canada.
And so here's the thing, when you think in an individual survivalistic kind of the tendencies we are trained to have is that people could then see and look at it and say, hey, you should have just taken the deal that's best for your family right now. It's not, though, because if we keep thinking that way, that is just survival mode and not wanting to deal with what we need to deal with when we're tested, because we're supposed to be thinking about our children and their children's children and future generations. Yes. Like you said, if you set precedents to allow them to manipulate and control even more than they already do, you're part of the problem. And so then you say, okay, but I still recognize it takes a lot of fortitude and some type of vision and depth and stability to get through that. So nobody's saying we expect anybody to go through those things. But again, it's the basically backing off and stopping the judgment that is very superficial, judging people that are willing to go through it, instead of looking at them right now, that there's mechanisms involved and mind space involved that's about a bigger picture. And nobody's trying to say, oh, we're so great doing it. No, we're just saying you feel it and you have to pursue it. And if you don't pursue it, you don't feel you're being true to yourself. You don't feel you're being authentic. So when it gets to the stage where you feel like, you know what, I can't, like you just said, I can't make this though, because I'm trying to contrive that in my head. It's the best deal. But it deep down inside me, I know that's not the best deal for humanity. And to say that sounds like you're trying to, no, it's not. It's just that if you go against that, you can cause yourself a lot of trauma. When you're ready to do battle, stand up. And with the appearance of being against the flow, because you're not in the herd type of thinking, but you're actually in the flow of your heart, that you feel it for yourself. It's a truth that you know and you feel. Anybody that's done deep meditation, been in the zone, yoga, in religion, anything, these things, they prepare you little glimpses of that. When you feel like you're in the zone, you know that you're doing something that's meaningful because it's coming from your heart. And nothing in your head can tell you differently to try to make you stop doing that. And it can make some people afraid and stressed out and things like that. And that's fair. But at the same time, we can't let that stop us from doing what's really true.
No, we can't. No. And, I guess, in line with that, the meat and potatoes, the empowering information that people can take away from this, I've as I'm very self-analytical. Probably harder on myself than I should be.
I think that's a great thing. Yeah.
But hey, if I'm in the business of growth, then I better be looking at myself. And as part of that, there's been a bit of a formula that I've seen that when I deviate from it in the heat of the battle, I suffer bad. And when I don't, I'm able to stand boldly. Because during this time as well, I was tasked with taking on the division of Truehope, which is a new division, the Truehope Canada division, getting into retail stores, because up until that point, for the previous 15 years, we had been direct to consumer. And so I'm taking on this new division, and at one point in time, I'm coming to a one-man show. And I'm answering the phone calls, I'm taking the orders, I'm traveling around, doing the trainings, and then starting again public presentations. So now I'm having to start to hire reps. But it was from the very, ground up that I was building.
You just went through all that.
As I'm
ground up.
I'm going through it. I took over this division 7 months after the passing of Ezekiel, and then I get charged, and I get charged literally. I think it was 2 weeks before my first ever public presentation at a show where I'm presenting along people like yourself. You weren't at that show. It was in Steinbach, Manitoba. But like amongst the crew, like Lorna Vanderhagen, right? Like the all the people that we would present alongside at these shows.
It got so bad that shows, because this is how we met each other, listening to each other sometimes too, when it's an open type forum, is that it was so bad at certain points that people in our own industry would not have you because they were so scared of the repercussions of being associated with you. And to me, I recognize that now because of what we went through, which we haven't even talked about with the SWAT, and thinking we have to stand beside each other. We have to show each other when we're under fire and we're doing something that's true and we're supporting the ancient way coming back. I feel it makes you, I think that's part of the process of history, how it keeps going, is that once the fire is ignited, like the Milgram experience, Stanley Milgram, when they talk about, is one person that goes against the grain and starts to stand is slowly igniting more and more and more. And there's so many that have been ignited, and that all the power is in every single one of us to do so. And to undermine us and disempower us for so long has been the tactic and strategy, whatever, is to keep us at bay. And that's no longer possible with all the information coming out. And everything we're seeing unfold now everywhere is a huge sign that something great is coming out of the mess. Like I said, again, and I feel like I stayed in this industry because we were talking both, we've been offered big money for the companies, and that is, we decided, no, I'd rather buy out and maintain, so in big debt, to buy out the rest of the company and have that, because I know this is the time to stand. And you said at the beginning, it proves that you're doing something that's right, the more that they put the spotlight on you. And I feel like if we could just see that, the more that the negative spotlight is being put on a lot of people, I'm not talking about criminals killing people. Right. I'm talking about, you're going, why are they after them?
Yep.
It's go there, look there. Anything they tell you not to look at, look there, look there. Exactly. And then you'll see, if you go down, you just have to find the right avenues. And lots of this viewership have already done that. But when you do it, you can't undo it. And ignorance is not bliss.
No.
Because that would mean that it's bliss forever and it's an ongoing bliss. No, ignorance is you keep on searching for entertaining ways to keep yourself feeling happy because you have an underlying angst knowing that something's not right. So the ignorance, you don't feel good about being ignorant or bewildered either because you feel like you're out in the dark and you have to trust everybody else for everything. So that whole thing, ignorance is bliss, is BS.
Absolutely.
The truth is, wisdom gives you the skill to navigate things, and wisdom is required. It's direct experience. Like wisdom in ancient ways didn't mean a whole bunch of facts. It meant that you were directly experiencing something. We've both directly experienced the negative side, been willing to go through the process, as have so many, and we want to come out sharing ways of empowering other people to see the power in themselves, to rise now, and then we formulate some type of better way of living together. And it's definitely not the forms of governance we've had all through time. It's,
absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yep. Absolutely.
So you got through it. So that was 2021, you said?
So 2012 was when my personal journey with my wife and the loss of my son really began. Yeah. And finally by 2021, it had come to basically a close, even though we appealed to the Supreme Court to try to get that precedent undone. Once again, like we had nothing to lose at that point in time, but we just couldn't in good conscience know that precedent was there that could be used against somebody. So we appealed to the Supreme Court. Unfortunately, by August of 2022, they denied the appeal, and it all came to a close. But during that time, though, so I think it's important for the viewers to know that I wasn't just hanging on for dear life through this time. I was proactively, and oftentimes the greatest form of stress was the business I was involved in taking something that was in the red, that was going to be shut down, that division, and turning it into a multi-million-dollar company while going literally through hell, right? While going to jail, wrongfully convicted, death threats, all this. And so the power of that particular story, showing that one can still thrive even while 100%. They are just being like, all the forces are going against them to, right? Yeah, you're being destroyed socially, career-wise. And you're right, I was getting kicked out of shows. And not so easily. The shows wanted to keep me, but the media was doing a fantastic job.
I remember they sent 5,000 bots to one of the shows. It's in Victoria. She knew they were bots.
Yeah.
But they couldn't do anything about it because then it looked like there was a lot of that support and people were looking at that. And I thought to myself, I'm not going to say anything. But the idea is, we as an industry that represents the ancient way, the traditional ways of health, including that are still operative in traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, Tibetan medicine, herbal medicine, whatever, all these different medicines, we represent them. We can't back down. But I understand it's, as a business idea, if you have something, then the media goes after you. And then the media, you realize, is just an arm of this mechanism that's used to pummel us nonstop, which was not the case back in the 60s and 70s. It still had some freedom of press. People still would challenge big, we remember it. And then it completely ended, like you said, and it became this monolithic BS propaganda machine. And I feel that's all changing, obviously, too, with all these different podcaster people. I know we're just starting in tiny, but some of the big ones, I mean, yes, there's some controlled opposition, 100%. You can see it. But at the same time, it's controlled opposition because there's a demolition happening.
Absolutely. Yeah. So they're trying to control both sides of the narrative.
And trying to capitalize off it. That's why they hyper-tax you and everything. All these stresses that we're having and the financial stress that everybody's having is just the end of empire. It always happens that way. And they try to rob all the money out of you by taxation and everything. And then if people start to rise and voices like us try to get squashed. But for me, do you want to say anything else about your story?
Well, I was just going to say, but before we jump into your story, and I'm sure that you can parallel this, is that there was two main things that arose as I'm sitting there self-analyzing and realizing when I'm doing really good and when I'm not doing so good in the heat of the battle. And those two things are spiritual and physical, neither of them being more important there because they're interconnected.
Exactly.
Spiritual and physical nourishment. Now, I'm going to just for, full disclosure. So obviously I'm using the Truehope supplements. I get them free of charge, and they are designed to bolster mental health. But there's another line of products that I'm using at the same time, which you're probably aware of, unless maybe it's not being disclosed to you, but your head office would have records of it as I'm ordering your guys' products and I'm using them alongside ours. Like especially the adrenal support. Needed it.
So
right?
that's medicinal mushrooms plus ashwagandha, leaf and root.
It's chaga, cordyceps, and ashwagandha. Right. And I've been on that now for 10 years actually. I know you've changed the name a couple times. So I don't know if vitality and adrenal support. I don't know which one's which, right? But I call it both, right? The recovery. Right, I'm using that now. That's because my body was falling apart from the time that I was in my youth, right? But
all that stress.
Well, no, before the stress. This is going back to 2001. I've been on MSM and then, right? And so as soon as I discovered that recovery was the all-in-one formula, I switched over to that and I'm using that plus the MSM.
So we want to collaborate a lot and stores are putting us together without knowing. Obviously, I was just telling David before we started that they're starting to align us because I feel like they feel like we're trying to send a message that we believe in the whole industry. We call it co-opetition. We named it after the store told us that. It's basically, we just want to grow the idea that the ancients had all these things. And there's modern ways of processing all this thing and research, but the ancients already had it. We're just providing a platform and a voice. And yes, it is our livelihood, but it feels good to have a livelihood, but that's helping animals and people. And that we use each other's products and our families believe in each other. And I agree with that. It's that. So we have our Truehope and Purica. We have the body in balance, mind in harmony, energy in a state of flow, but they're all inseparable in the center, the Truehope. So basically, we're talking about things like they're separated, but they're not. And that's how, like you just said, when you're going through these intense stressors, if you're not taking care of one aspect, say, of yourself, you really start to see that, whether it be the physical side or the energetic side or the mental and contemplative spiritual side. if one's lacking, you feel it. And yes, everything's important because physical movement is huge. And sometimes when you're in the fray, you're in front of the computer doing research the whole time, and you just say, I don't need to move. I just need to focus. I stay up all night. And then you start to feel it, right? And so I get that because I've been there. Yeah. So I agree with you. Making sure that you're taking care of all aspects of yourself.
It was so evident, especially right off the bat when we were charged. I remember sometimes, wake up in the morning and you feel that heavy weight on your chest, and you're like, I'm not doing something right. I missed some doses yesterday, right? Yeah. All of a sudden the contrast is so stark. Yes. And my wife saw the same thing. So once we figured that out, which was early on, fortunately, we were able to stick to it and make sure that we were nourishing ourselves spiritually, tapping in all the time, and making sure that we were constantly nourished physically, the vitamins, the minerals, the adaptogens, all this type of stuff, right? And it made a world of difference. That it wasn't just, we weren't surviving this onslaught of attacks. We were thriving and literally, took something in the red that wasn't doing good and turned into a multi-million-dollar business during that time. And it just highlights the power of nourishment, right? Which obviously comes from multiple areas. And I'm sure that you could attest to that because you've got quite a phenomenal story that just happened over the last couple of years here.
So 2022. I think 2022, my mom's birthday. So basically, to preface this, we had a huge situation with the RCMP, a SWAT that I'll talk about in a sec, which was, according to RCMP and people who knew at the time, the largest expenditure of SWAT in Canadian history. So it was big. And what had happened was back in March of 2020, we were away for my 50th birthday, and then the whole thing with the COVID thing happened. And I heard some stuff. I was still in Mexico. I heard some stuff. And because my background's in science and medicine, I was hearing stuff that they were saying which didn't make any sense. And everybody was getting really worried because we're going back, and they're going to start this 2-week, quarantine thing, which wouldn't matter when you're gone away and then you get 2 weeks at home, and we like our home, but you're not allowed to go to grocery shop and all that stuff. I said, Anna's thinking, should we be worried? And I said, you know what? No, because they're doing something, because they're conflating. So I started talking. I've never been on social media or anything. And I got back and I started seeing all this venomous attacks on different people and stuff. And the censorship mechanism hasn't yet been engaged like it did for anybody that knew when you're talking out how much you were censored. But I felt like I got to get on social media to share what I know of when I was in clinic in Western medicine style, what we did and what were the parameters and what is the WHO even parameters and protocols for a supposed pandemic, all the stuff going on. Plus I started talking about things like that they were conflated. They used a guy named in Britain, Neil, Ferguson, who's noted for exaggerating in a huge way. I'm not thinking they used him. He's already been implicated before. Why are they using him to spout off this entire thing? Yep. Then they were conflating CFR case fatality rate versus infection fatality rate. What that means is, for anybody, is case fatality. Say you monitored that a whole bunch of these people had a certain sickness, right? Cases. Versus how many of them are in the hospital with an infection.
Right.
Well, the number of deaths that would occur from, say, whatever X condition that is, of overall cases across the country versus the ones that are actually the infection fatality rate, it's going to be a world of difference in deaths. The ones that are in the hospital with infection fatality rate, that's going to be obviously a big one. So that's a lot bigger number, scarier number. Well, they were conflating they were confusing the IFR for just the overall caseload. It doesn't even mean you're really sick or anything. And to do that means that they're trying to spread fear.
Right.
So that was my thing. Somebody's trying to spread fear. They've done it before. You look up Fauci and his dealings with Kerry Mullis, Dr. Kerry Mullis, the one who invented the PCR test. Yep. He wanted to take Fauci and those guys to task all the time. They wouldn't debate with them because he said you should never use it in diagnostics. So anyways, I was talking about all that, and I have a lot of stuff in my mind because I've studied it a lot and it seems to stay. So I'm thinking, okay, I talked about that, and then about the PCR test, that they were utilizing it, number one, and it's supposed to be run at a maximum of 25 cycles, and it's supposed to be something that you use on top of other diagnostics, as if you've already had a positive, that you just to try to verify a little bit more, not to use as a diagnostic. If you run it over 25 cycles, like we talked about earlier, the concentration load, like Dr. Kerry Mullis says, you can still look it up on videos. He just said, you'll find anything. You'll find anything and everything, because you're basically computer modeling a potential. Plus, it doesn't indicate, even if that was even efficient anyway, it doesn't indicate whether you've beat that infection or it's infected right now. You know what I mean? Yep. So there's a positive versus negative. So the whole thing's bunk. And I thought, okay, this was making me nervous, because then there was all this negative talk started. So then I just said, I'm going out there. I'm not going to stay silent, because I know this is BS and there's something going on that's really bad, because everybody's saying the same thing across the board. And I already knew about the media from our dealings, that they lie constantly, right? I saw all this lying. And if you don't have a background in it, then you might see it. Or even if you are a doctor and you're following your regulatory board, they just follow along what they're told. Otherwise, they can lose their license or get fined. That's exactly why so many doctors went out. Lots of doctors, by the way, and nurses and lab techs and everything took early retirement during this thing, because they would not get mandated. They said, might as well retire. That's why there's a shortage in healthcare workers, by the way.
Yep.
It's because so many of them quit before they were going to quit. It's
I personally know a number of people that do that.
Yep. So that's a big issue now, and you see it today. So then I was doing this, and I was getting hit and hammered by all of what I call, derogative speech, but at the time I referred to my mind as sheeple. People who just follow along and send. People hated that term, so I didn't use it. But I thought, okay, I know it. So I wasn't getting all riled up, but they were calling me lots of names. And there was people in our community, we live on a small island, that said, they told other people who said when the vaccination started that they were vaccinated. They pretended they were vaccinated. And so I got tons of names on this island. It's probably going to scare people right now. Tons of names on this island that actually said to the people and used our names that we deserve to have a bullet in our head or in a lineup and kill them or hang them, all this stuff. Actually said it about us. And I know lots of people. But so that's why I think forgiveness has to be there, because you see when people are operating hope and fear, constant, that kind of thing, it's a different mechanism and it's easy to control you, and it's sad. And I feel like people need to apologize to people. That helps the process. If you don't apologize, it creates a lot of resentment inside. For me, it's just like another day, right?
And still perceived risk, right? If they're not apologizing, are they still that same individual that would love to do that to you the next time something arises?
Right. So then I just kept standing. I kept getting hammered. Other people in my family hated it because they see it as an argument. I see it as discourse, like you're defending a thesis. You have to discourse, otherwise nobody hears it. Lots of people heard what I said because I made everything public.
Yep.
So the RCMP in the Prime Minister's office and the head of the RCMP, they were all seeing what I was doing. So in the meantime, we had a cafe on the island, which you and Colette came to that time, called Beachside. And we were running it in kayaking and paddleboarding. And we did not force any of the mandates. We moved our tables like they wanted, but everything else. And we put a sign that said the 6 different disciplines I was trained in, including in pharmaceutical and industrial manufacture, in lab work, microbiology, chemistry, the type of mask you have to use and how this didn't affect anything and it would actually cause problems. So anyways, they had to let us kind of go with that because we put it at the till.
Yep.
But we were already considered as a problem. My wife and kids and all the people that worked with us and us. But the people that went there loved it. It was like an open, inclusive place where people could be themselves still. And then we had airflow. That's what you're supposed to do. Airflow is the best thing. Keeping windows and doors open, proper fans going. That is the best form of protection in any pandemic kind of protocol. So it came to the point where we had a guy living on our property that was ex-military, that his daughter, who was estranged from him, she went to school with our kids. And so we wanted to help this guy out. He's homeless and he can do construction work and everything. So we bought him a trailer and we bought him an electric motorcycle so he could go find work, right? And to try to give him a little bit of a start. And it was something, you have people on your property. Anyways, he was extremely moody because he relied on smoking pot constantly all day long. Pot and cigarettes, he wouldn't eat. He'd forego eating to do this kind of thing. So he's obviously an addict. And then it really moody. So we basically didn't even walk on our own property it came up to 11 months.
Do we want to touch on this just for a moment here? Because this has been something that we've observed in Truehope for quite some time. But it's becoming more prevalent now that they've legalized marijuana. Now, I'm neither for or against marijuana. I'm for education on it, understanding, because I've used it the odd time for pain management, like when I shattered my arm in a vehicle accident and it was broken in 3 spots, but completely severed. And anyways, so I used it for a couple nights to help me sleep. And then I stopped because I realized what it was also doing to, basically the prefrontal cortex of my brain, and that logic and reasoning was going out the window. But that there is an element to it as well, especially in certain people where psychosis is a reality from the overuse of it. And we've actually discovered that when somebody gets on our supplements with the vitamins and minerals, and now they're producing more dopamine naturally, and then they go and smoke up, the propensity for them to develop psychosis is enhanced significantly. And so that can cause moodiness. It can cause, right? Like going into that stage, even if you're not, clinically diagnosable psychosis, you're on your way there, that can create some serious mood dysregulation that would result in all sorts of interesting behaviors that are outside of what you'd consider to be healthy or normal.
They get around the idea of anything that they allow and legalize in society as a mainstream, you can assure yourself that it's used because they think it's going to decrease people rising up against things. And
exactly.
With weed and alcohol, for instance, they're both depressants technically. So you can feel like really wild and everything when you're inhibited from some of your conscious things like that. But both of them decrease blood flow to the head. So both of them decrease new input and formation or a struggle towards it. Some people they have a mindset that's really vibrant and they can take lack of blood flow and that opens your mind at the time, so they say, and they can still go. But most people, it's actually causing decreased blood flow, lack of an inability to retain new information. So people can box themselves in pretty hard, become really opinionated, fight oriented, or just back off and say, I don't want to deal with it. I just want to go with the flow. That's what I say. Going with the flow is dangerous in society because we're taught how to flow, and these drugs have become more and more prevalent just to try to cope with life. So I get that. I get people are trying to cope. There's way better ways. Finding your purpose is the best way by far. And what does that mean? Sometimes just being yourself. Stop trying to follow everybody else. Be yourself. You start to feel, I do have a purpose. Like the purpose is just being. Sometimes your purpose is just to smile and say hi, and because we need that. Holy smokes, we need that in society. People to give each other hugs, to look at each other in the eyes, just to be downtown with a smile, even when you feel crappy, or to be honest. You know what? When somebody says, how are you? I'll just be honest with you. I'm feeling crappy today, but at least I got to see you and say hi. That kind of idea. So he was struggling with it though. Like he had tons of cigarettes. He had 6 full big joints every day. I know, because we were giving him money because he wasn't working and we're trying to get him pumped up, right?
Yep.
And then I just realized, no, he figures like he's got his cash cow kind of thing. And it's horrible. And he started doing stuff that was really crazy. And then you can't talk them out of it because it's, all this egotistical kind of behavior. And he has a tendency towards violence. For some reason, he won't be violent towards me. He has a certain lot of specs. So I'm trying to work with them. Mm-hmm. He was doing a whole bunch of crazy stuff. The last stage was, he had him on the property. It's becoming really harsh. He won't work. We're funding everything for him. He's doing really odd stuff and fighting with us all the time. So I kept telling him, you're not our child or anything. You're older than me. And we can't, if you're going to participate in the family, you have to be part of the family and help and everything. We can't just fund you.
Right.
And he got bad at that and called me that I don't recognize. I'm an egotistical millionaire, all this kind of bullshit and everything. I thought, okay, you can say that, whatever. But what I'm saying is that if you want to live here, and we've given you all this stuff, you have to be a member of the family, like contribute and everything, and stop complaining and so that we can't even walk on our own property because you're so moody and angry.
Exactly.
So then it came to the point where he was stoned one day. 2 things happened, and then it'll lead to what happened is he wrecked the battery in the electric motorcycle, really expensive battery. So I had to find someone with a truck and go from the island, take the ferries, go over with the bike. And he was really happy that I was doing to fix this thing. Yeah. Probably going to cost us another couple grand or whatever. And I don't like it, but whatever. I'm thinking, okay, I know he did it because he's not thinking, but he's feeling stoned. It's a good, nice day. And I said, why do you not go by your real name for 30 years on Salt Spring and have no bank accounts, no ID, nothing, right? Mm-hmm. And he said, oh yeah, because of tax. I had taxes back in Ontario, moved over to Salt Spring and whatever. I said, well, I don't really believe that because the Gulf Islanders would think that was cool that you evaded. And then he was stoned. He was feeling connected, I guess. And he said, well, I kind of got charged, and then I got convicted of raping my mom. And so I'm trying to be really not judgmental all the time with them. Like he feels like I'm so like a priest or whatever. But that one, I guess my facial expression must have gone really like, whoa. And then I tried to backtrack. So, these things happen in the past 30 years, or, things in your life and whatever. I didn't know if he was bad drugs or whatever, stuff like that. And then he saw that. So then he tried to backtrack and say, well, no, it wasn't that. It was that we were having an affair for 9 years. And then she was just mad that I didn't want it anymore. And anyway, so that didn't work. He made it worse. Then and in this moment, I'd like to segue for a sec. If someone, this is what I learned when you said you learned stuff. If someone is about to tell you something that you can tell is major, right? Be careful. Because if they tell you and then they realized, what was I doing? Because they were in a moment feeling good or whatever, they will hate you afterwards and do everything they possibly can to take you down.
They've turned you into a threat.
Immediately, I saw that.
Yeah.
He resented what he did, and now he knows I know, and it's just like, whoa, and he feels like he's now under all this stuff. So these power plays started happening on our property, which I knew had to do with that. Oh, dang. And so then it came to the point where he was stoned another time. I was with a friend, and he was outside our house. He just showed up, and he was complaining, mad and everything. Then he said that, your family is easy pickings. And I thought, what? We live in a big acreage. We didn't have shredders or anything at the time. And he said, oh yeah, I've been patrolling around your house at night, and the women in your family be easy pickings. And he had a crossbow. But he's looking at them naked when they're changing through the window, because we're in a big project, there's no neighbors.
Right, there's nothing around
so
here.
He was watching them he's basically telling me as a power play that I've been looking at all including your wife, naked, and that I have a crossbow as well. Like as a psychopathic kind of thing.
Right.
And so then I said, then that ended. I hadn't even talked with my wife and then about what he said about his past, but because I was trying to be open and not judge for way back then. Right. But at the same time, I'm getting cautious, but I didn't want my wife and everybody to know because I thought, ooh, this is going to create a horrible scenario.
Yep.
So I said, you got to go. You got to go. If you already had 3 times warning, you got to go.
Yep.
And he's not paying anything ever. So I said, you got to go. And then he said, I'm going to make you pay. I'm going to make you suffer. And I'm going to make you see the inside of the system that you so love, which I don't know why he said that part, because I've never loved the system. I've like you, we see it.
Right.
But luckily he said that to the taxi driver that he got to take him away.
Yep.
And so I thought it was just going to be some tenancy thing that he had pulled, because he apparently had done it with his family his whole life. Like they pay a month's rent and then they accuse the landlord of something and they get 11 months free, whatever.
Yep.
So I thought that was going to happen. And then whatever, you got to deal with it. And so no, nothing was happening. Nothing's happening. I saw him hanging around beachside or other business in Ganges in the village. And then I thought, what's he going to do? And then I get a call from the RCMP, and I can speed this one up, but get a call from the RCMP that could we come to our house and go down to beachside it's on the water downtown, because some people are messing around with their kayaks and paddleboards. I said, okay, yeah, I heard something was happening before. I'll come down. So that wasn't it. They were coercing me out of the house down there. And that when I got there, there's all these police there, not from here. I don't know what's going on. I thought, whoa, something must be big happening there, right? So then I get out of the car and it drops me off. And then I get out to talk to the one officer that I recognize. And I said, hey, what's going on? And he said, Jason Watkin, you're under arrest. And I said to him, yeah, right. We were joking. I was joking. He said, no, Jason, no. He looked at me serious. And then all these other police officers started moving around me with cuffs, and they got armor and everything. I don't recognize them. And he said, Jason Watkin, you're under arrest. And I said, what? And then they handcuffed me, pushed me forward and handcuffed me in front. It was a really busy day downtown. Anybody that knows Salt Spring, on a market day, tons of people in the sun into August. And I said, I don't understand what's going on. I don't understand what's going on. And then they surrounded me, handcuffed me. Then they took me out to these police cars and pushed me up against this police car with my head. And there's all these people start gathering around. I said, what is going on? What's going on? I need to know. What am I charged with? What am I charged with? I don't have any criminal record.
Yep.
What am I charged with? And he said, we'll talk about that when we get to the office. I said, to the station. I said, I need to know what am I charged with? And he wouldn't tell me. The whole time, I guess I wasn't even thinking, because everybody kept saying I really calm, but he just kept saying, I don't understand. They were kicking my legs out from under me, pushing my head into the thing, trying to discombobulate me. I thought, you know what? My mind's probably making it seem like it's going on forever. It's probably just like a minute or two.
Yep.
But no, they kept me there for like 25 minutes, half an hour, whatever.
Wow, to try to
humiliate me. And then I tried to get them to move me. I said, my whole family's here. I don't even know what's going on. And they moved me to a place that the traffic and everybody could see me better. So this was happening. And it's right there. So, and my son's right there. I don't even know what's going through his mind. He's 16 at the time. And so then I finally got out of them. I made them show me, and it says that I'm a terrorist, and that I'm an arms manufacturer and dealer, and that I manufacture explosive devices, bombs and everything, and I'm a dealer. I go, what? Oh my God, Ted. I said, one cop. I said, you know me. What's going on? I don't understand what's going on. And then, so then they take me away finally. But my wife doesn't know. Now they know that I have a terrorism charge. And people are going, what? This is Jason. Oh my God. He's not a terrorist. What? He's the opposite of a terrorist. And it's like, he's smiling all the time. Anyway, it's like, okay. So they take me away. My wife, Anna, and the kids don't know. And nobody knows where they take me. And apparently when people are checking it out, when you're accused of terrorism, you go to one of these 4 places outside Vancouver, non-disclosed locations, to be with other terrorists. And we all know that everybody gets out of jail. So the only ones that remain in jail are the really violent ones, right?
Yep.
So anyway, they don't know where I am. Then they took me to the police station, and all that time later, it's super hot. And then they shut the doors, and it's pitch black, zero light in the thing. And then they lock the doors inside this big garage compound that I've been in to basically put me in complete sensory deprivation, like sound, light, everything.
Yeah.
And I'm in there in the back, and they had me handcuffed with my head down in the back seat, so I couldn't move. And I'm just going inside my mind like you and saying, I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to break me. No way. They don't know what they're doing inside. And it kept me going, but they left me there for quite a while. Then they opened the door, went back in. I guess they had to empty the whole jail system. And so then they flipped this metal thing out of the wall, this tiny little bench thing. I don't know if you ever had to sit one of those. And I sat there, and someone had obviously thrown up or whatever before. So I'm sitting there with all these police I don't recognize because they're from off island somewhere else. They're not obviously police. And then I tell them, I said, so am I going to get out of here tonight? And they just wouldn't talk to me. And finally, they got a hold of my lawyers, our business lawyers, not criminal. And they got a hold of me and said, we don't have any criminal lawyers. We're going to have to try to find a really good criminal lawyer. So they found a really good criminal lawyer. He calls me. I go in this little room, start talking to him. I said, so I want to get out of here. Today I'm still in the hallway with all the concrete and everything. And he says, no, you're not going to get out here tonight. I said, well, when am I going to get out of here? Because I'm just thinking, I didn't do anything. So what the heck? He said, you've been accused of terrorism and arms and that. That's an extremely serious charge. And so what's realistically going to happen to you is you're going to be shipped to one of 4 non-disclosed locations outside Vancouver with other people and terrorist things like that. And I said, well, so you don't think I'm going to get out of there tonight? And he goes, no, you're not going to get out tonight. And he said, in my mind, I'm thinking, I'm going to work out really hard and read lots of books. So I need to get my book. So anyway, that's all I could think about. So I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm going to go with seriously violent people. I need to somehow be like, hey man. So then I thought, I said, all these things going through my head. Then I thought, he said, don't say anything to them.
Yep.
Because they're going to turn everything around and make you look like a criminal. And he obviously doesn't know me, as you know, you and I can talk. So I go out in the hall. Then they put me in the room for a couple hours, I think on a concrete bench inside the jail cell. And then I laid there, and then I thought, I'm not laying here. So I just started to do a meditation. So I'm meditating and sitting there. Then the one liaison officer that they hire in the midst of all these other interrogating officers, which they had, and plus security out, there's a whole bunch of people in there from different parts of Canada. Anyway, because this is a major thing they're trying to get me for. So I just basically meditating. He comes up to me. It's really cool. He said, are you meditating? I said, yeah. He said, would you like anything to eat or drink? And I said, well, I'm kind of hard to serve because I'm a vegetarian and everything. No worries. I'll go to the grocery store. Sweet day. He got me like a yerba mate drink. I didn't drink it, and he got me some sushi or whatever, vegetarian. And it was cool. So I was being good, but I wasn't allowed to go to the bathroom without somebody watching me. And I knew that because it's like I'm supposedly on suicide watch or something like that because I'm going to kill myself, whatever, because they got me for terrorism and they're going to put me away forever. They said he also said in that call, the lawyer, that I probably wouldn't be able to talk or see my family for at least a few weeks, maybe months, maybe more.
Oh, wow.
So in other words, they're thinking that, and so am I thinking that,
Yep.
that I might not be able to see or hear or even know if they're alive or anything, or they won't know where I am. He said they won't know where you are. You'll be gone. They won't know where you are, and no communication. So then I thought, okay, that's why I was meditating. And I guess inside you're just trying to let go so that things can come up as when I'm talking, what's going to go on. There's no agenda, just like I need to be clear. So then I went in the room, and I think it was like 6 or whatever hours of interrogation in a hot, sweaty room, no air conditioning. They kept trading out, the guys, there was 3 of them, and I had to do it. So then it got to the point, like all these questions they're asking in the end, because I'm saying, how am I a terrorist? And we're going through everything. I'm smiling. I'm just saying everything. I'm not holding back anything. And then I said, I saw, they're trying to get me to expose all these different people's names about stuff. I said, why would I bring other people's names into anything? I can handle stress. I don't want to put anybody, young or old, into stressful situations that haven't done nothing wrong. And I'm starting to see that they're seeing about people who are open-minded to the fact that what's going on is not real. The whole, last 5 years.
Yep.
So then in the end, sure enough, I said, I saw a list that you had of people's names right there. And then they said, there's no list. I was lying and everything. And then the whole thing went sideways because they had started it. We developed a really good rapport. And now it looks like I'm a liar. And I'm thinking, oh God, I saw the list. And then then the head guy comes back after about 5-10 minutes of it going so sideways, saying, we are so sorry. There was exactly that list, exactly the names, everything on it. So sorry. And I said, I'm just sorry. I don't want to get him in trouble or anything. He said, why are you doing that? No, we're sorry that you're just talking. So I just kept talking, the opposite of what my lawyer said.
Right.
Which is, again, don't trust authority sometimes. If you feel like you're being authentic and true and you know that you don't have anything to hide, then talk.
Absolutely. Well, okay, so that's a principle that I applied throughout our whole case, which was incredibly abnormal. But had I not spoken out, the media would have had the end word on the narrative, and they would have been able to do anything they wanted to
100%.
because the only public evidence would have been what the media put out. So 100%. You have to talk in some instances. If you got nothing to hide, you have to talk.
And all the stuff learning before that of I don't care what names people call me and everything. Who cares? They're just reacting because they don't actually know, and they're behaving in ways that are disheartening, but at the same time hoping for your thing.
Yep.
So back to that, I said he was good. Then the whole last part of it became about my vaccine stance. I said, wow. I don't have a vaccine stance. I said, I look at information. I have a lot of education in this because I said you're trying to psychologically manipulate me. And I know because I've studied all this before. They said, we know that you're smart. I said, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, I know you're trying to, no, we're not yet. You are trying to manipulate me. I'm just going to tell you what I know to be true. Then it was really good, the rapport after that. Then came up the entire last part of it was all about my vaccine stance, which I said, I don't have a stance. I want informed consent like we've always had. So I'm sharing what has always been standard practice up until 2019. We're going against everything. And then we're acting like everybody that's talking about what we did in 2019 is conspiracy theory. And that we're all hocus pocus science deniers. That we're the exact opposite. We're sharing what exactly was the science for 60 years in Western medicine. So anyway, they wanted me to explain everything. So I started talking about the PCR and all these different and rotations, and then the CFR versus IFR, and that they're going through the different doctors, what they'd done. And then also the treatment protocols and pandemic protocols were going against everything, and how anyway, then the one guy said, can you stop for a second? And then he got the other guy, and then the other guy listening, and then 3 of them wanted me to repeat everything. So basically I could see that not only was the rapport there, because I knew I was going to get out, but there was also an interest to then defend their own thinking that they already had suspicions. You could tell that then they could present that to their superiors, so they didn't fire them, mandate them out, right?
Right.
So I could see what's going on. So the back end, what was happening in this whole 6.5 hour period that I was being interrogated was, even though I gave them the codes, they had bashed down this really nice fence system. They had put on the national media and the US pictures of the front of our place, which everyone knew the owner of Purica's, the owners of Purica live on Salt Spring, and they have the Triskellers, the symbol
Yep.
that's on our gates, right?
Yep.
So they knew it was us, and they had cops with big armor and big guns and everything right there, saying like that we're being raided. So they sent SWAT helicopters, supposed to be the largest at the time, maybe still the largest SWAT in the history of Canada. It must have cost so much. There's people that I know in RCMP that figure it's in the millions of cost.
Yep.
So they sent a SWAT helicopter that went low and that was surfacing armored helicopter through the whole neighborhood for 3 hours or something like that. They sent in their armored SWAT tank basically to bash down the gate because they want to use their toys, you know.
Yep.
And then they had a whole bunch of armed big officers, fully looked like, you know, SWAT military carriers, big guns, and the big gun on the armored vehicle, which is, I don't know what millimeter, is huge. And then they had numerous armored dog units.
Yep.
So they sent them all up. All the ferries in Salt Spring, 3 of them, they were bringing them in all the different ranges. And then they even pinned somebody down in our house. Our friend was here, and they pinned her down on the floor. She's like just over 5 feet. And wouldn't let her move with big guns and everything. She thought she was listening to, she's in the house and she normally has her music on, but she was just listening to the music outwardly and said, "Stop, put your hands up." And she thought that was in the song. So she went in the, and then she sees there's a tank moving right up to the window and all these guys are fleeing with dogs out of the thing. And then they come up with guns. So anyways, major stress for our friend. Like it's definitely a PTSD. She's still, years later, when she hears a helicopter or anything, it's like intense stress. It was shaking all the houses. It was a huge, heavy helicopter. And all the neighbors are freaking out. All our kids are freaking out. They don't know where I am. They went through every aspect of our property because he said we had underground bunkers with militia and all this stuff. Made up all these crazy stories. That guy that was accused of, that got convicted of raping his mom.
Yep.
And then we find out that he has restraining orders and everything for threatening to burn down places and kill people, even on Salt Spring, even under his fake name.
So hold on. He has ongoing criminal cases against him with restraining orders and all
Restraining
that.
orders, yeah.
And yet they are exploiting the testimony of a convicted felon. They're taking his testimony and they're now exploiting it to come at you, guns blazing. Really, like they're all hands on deck.
Yep.
Let's Operation Take Down Jason.
Yep. And I feel like it's interesting because it had to go all the way to the Prime Minister's office and Lucky's office, the RCMP. So, Mr. Trudeau, you're not a very cool guy, just so we know. Anyway, it was at a time when they wanted to silence certain voices on the internet. Because I was public, I always had people coming up. I told you that they said, "Thank you so much for what you're doing." Because I was just supplying information. I tried to bring humor to it once in a while too, to make like, look at this. Does this make any sense to you? Like what the plexiglass. Now I'm here. Now I'm here. Now I'm here. Now I'm here. Anyways, we joke, just a joke, to try to bring light to it, because the only way humor can disarm people, obviously. So they wanted me shut down, and so that's how they did it. And they used him, but there's no way that a judge would have signed off on that, right? Especially looking at his history, right? There's no way. And they did, meaning that they went after me. So we have, a suit against them, and they need to buck up and pay for things that you did to us. But at the same time, I'm not getting all riled and everything about it, but I'll talk about it a lot, like David.
Yep.
We'll talk about it and expose the kind of mechanisms. And also a lot of you I know, because I met a lot of you RCMP during the process. You didn't want to be there. And you didn't even want to start it because they were doing investigations before we were there. Like for instance, they laid on our property. They had to reveal it in paperwork when I was released, that for 15 to 19 hours, they were on our property on a certain date before this, scoping out the property. We weren't there. There was 6 women, our daughters included, 18 to 22, I think at the time, that were having this Mamma Mia party. That's why they didn't hear anything. It was so loud. The music, our dog was inside. He would have known.
Yep.
And they saw lights going off, but they just thought it was deer. And the dog didn't hear anything because of the music. Anyways, they were laying, and I saw where they were laying in the spots. You can see it clearly. Mm. They were watching, and the girls were getting changed in the nude into costumes in between. And the window that they were looking at is right there. So you want me to stop talking, stop doing stuff like that to people, and start thinking about the people, not about who you're trying to protect and just doing your job, because that is really sick. So anyways, that happened. Mm. And so that's just going to rile me up, right? Because anytime when people do stuff to women like that is
It's an absolute violation.
Even our lawyer saying this is way over the line. They should have stopped right then because they didn't see anything. They just kept going, which indicates an agenda. So my thing is, I'm not angry at them, but I'm like you. If you don't keep talking and don't make somehow that they have to compensate or that there's a consequence for their actions, whatever, so that they don't do it again. Even if a whole bunch of them, this gets exposed, and a whole bunch of them use their conscience and their empathy instead of following orders for a hierarchy that is based on corruption and is protecting a corrupt governance and even all the other governance. If you knew the history of some of the different law enforcement agencies of the world, and who they're beholden to, like with the UN and different things like that, then you would recognize they're not for the people. But a lot of them would like to be for the people, and that's why they got into it. So I want to recognize that and say, all of you, please stand up. I met a lot of people, including during that whole thing, that couldn't believe what happened. So this, to me, we got out of it. They found nothing on the property whatsoever, and I did get out that night. So at 1 a.m., my family came, my wife, our three kids, and our dog came to pick me up at the door, and the police were not from there. So they pressed the button to let me out, but the button was actually for officer in distress. So then everybody engaged. So we chuckled at the same time. Like, I got along well with them because I knew that they were thinking that I am somehow a bad guy. And the whole idea of this Napoleonic justice where you're guilty until proven innocent kind of idea is just such BS. And also, if they just come and talk to me, for crying out loud, they could see that I'm not a terrorist, holy smoke, or talk to anybody else. But that was the case. They did talk to lots of people that indicated, oh my God, these people are definitely not anything like that. They're the opposite of that. They still did it. And to me, that shows how sick the last 5 years were. That people that we actually knew and got along with said our names, that we should have a bullet in the head and pointed to their head, stuff like that, or hung. That happened. That indicates you're being manipulated in an extreme way to say that about somebody that's just sharing information. Yep. But that's where I feel like you and I stood up because we had to stand up, but it didn't feel like look at me, I'm standing up. No, it felt like if you don't stand up, I'm not being true to myself. I told my mom that too, my dad, he doesn't think like this, but he said, you got to stop because they're going to kill you. This is before the RCMP did it. They're going to kill you if you keep talking like this. I said, I can't stop. You know what? I can't stop because I need to share this information. So whoever doesn't want to do it, doesn't do it. Even if they have to lose their job and everything, because the repercussions, I already knew of that too, because the mRNA, I already was familiar with the technology with the ferret trials, which they're not going to talk about with you, that I knew that would never be a successful drug ever. They would never be able to release it because of what it did in the ferret trials back in, I think, 90s or 20. And then that's another thing. When they said they're talking about that already in fast tracking, I was, whoa, this is bad stuff. Something bad. Because I already knew all the stuff that I knew was going to happen. I also knew the time lag on a lot of it. It doesn't happen with majority within the first even days or months or anything. It happens quite a bit after, but it's a cumulative thing with the immune system's totally messed up. Yep. Then you keep getting boosters and a whole bunch of other stuff. So I thought, okay, this is wrong. It's all coming out. In the States, he's bringing stuff out slowly.
Yep.
And I feel like there's no way back now. They can't keep it up. If we keep talking and keep rising, even in stuff like this, the Weeble, I'm just going to be a Weeble. I don't care if people call me Weeble. The idea is meeting people like you that stood up, meeting your dad when I needed to meet him back then, but meeting you've been through, to me, what you went through is a lot more intense because it's so close to home and emotional, and there's a big loss than mine, but I still relate to the idea of overstepping and the fact that justice is not justice. And if you study ancient philosophy, ancient wisdom, you know that we are, just like in Orwellian times, where we flipped everything on its head.
Yep.
There's mass surveillance, all the stuff they're doing. And then if you read Brave New World with Huxley, you can see that he just said, just throw out so much information, everybody's confused and they give up.
Yep.
Creates a freeze response, which is what they've done in places like Guantanamo and that to create. But the saving grace of all that is when they did that research, I think it was in Guantanamo with terrorists. This is where I want to end, and I want to see what you want to say is they said, yes, they were able to basically keep changing the information nonstop, back and forth. We're doing 180s all the time.
Yep.
And after a while, people just give up. And they will give up to an authority figure, and then they'll do and say what you want them to say. It's a way to instead of physical torture or humiliation, something like that, is it gets you too much information back. I don't know who to believe. And then you give up. And the crazy thing was two things. Number one, that over 80% of people gave up. The positive side is, I think it was something like 13 or 17% or something in there. They didn't give up no matter what they did. They would not give up 230 figure. They stayed strong.
Yep.
And then the other one that was crazy was that even when the experimenters told the people that everything they said was a lie, that almost none of them would even listen to the very person that convinced them of all those things was telling them the truth, and they would stick their feet in because they didn't want to hear it. They were so tired of thinking for themselves.
Yep.
They just didn't want to think anymore. That's why it's so easy to see, right? When you see somebody, you try to convince and give data, they don't listen. I don't want to hear it. I want to hear it.
Well, that's Mark Twain, right? Where he says it's easier to fool somebody than to convince them they've been fooled.
It's crazy.
Yep.
And there's the ego and everything involved there. Yep. I just want to say that they've used these tricks over thousands of years. They've learned and learned and learned and learned. So they had a heads up on us. Now that people have been exposed to these things, especially on social media in a mass way, we don't have to fall for them anymore. And they also said that 17% that didn't listen in these different trials, that they started convincing the other ones. Because most people just give up.
Yep.
But a great percentage, you know this too, right? Matthias Desmond is really good at exposing that. The idea that there's a large percentage of people that just do what they're told because they don't want to get involved in it, even if they don't believe it. But if they see the other 17 or whatever percent standing up, they gradually go that way. Because nobody wants to be considered a loser kind of idea, that idea. And the losing side becomes the side that's based on a fiction.
Yep.
That followed what they were told to do. So the middle group starts to recognize, you know what? That's not going to be the easy one anymore. The might is right, the herd mentality and the bullying and the yelling. They're just going to look like losers. Like the idea, I'm just using that term because it's back in my day, is you want to be with the side that you see that's rising. And the unfortunate part, we have to go through this pain, and people that shouldn't be in power get power.
Yep.
And it's happening in a great way right now. You divide them by all these letters that people are giving. People say that's about equality. It's not about equality. It's known as a tactic to divide. So all of these different things that they're pushing on us. And whenever you get pushed on something from a minority group, you know that it's a tactic used in social engineering. So I feel like everybody's figuring it out, because I feel I have such faith in mankind that there's an ability, once it's awakened, that starts to like light up the whole area. Like that ancient analogy. So this is my last thing, and I want to see your last words. This is my last words, I promise. Is that idea that in a cave that's been completely dark for 10,000 years, which to me relates to all of the dark, we don't know what's going on in the world really.
Yep.
And that all it takes is one candle to light up a small area. And once you've seen it, you can't unseen it. And then you want to light it up with a torch. So it's all about, how do I light that thing fully up? It's not about, how do I ignore that? Like, what's this in the Matrix, Cypher? He just wants to forget everything and go back in.
Right.
It's not about that. It's about, almost nobody can forget when they've seen something. And you and I have been exposed to the corruption levels, the lying. Plus, my whole thing always is the political system. Why would you listen to people that you wouldn't even want as friends?
Exactly.
Why do you do that?
And with nefarious track records,
right?
Like, it's because we have an innate in our lazy mindset, and we are just like everything else. Electricity finds the most direct route.
Yeah.
Water finds the most direct
route.
Right? Everything in nature is looking for its easiest way back into the lowest area.
Yep.
Humans are no different, right?
Yep.
In our natural state, if we just go by default or go with the flow where we are complacent, we will naturally find the easiest way down, not recognizing that you got to come back up. Right? And so in that laziness, we want to put our hope in somebody else. It's easier because it absolves ourselves of personal responsibility. And responsibility comes with a great level of, duty, right? Like you have to work for it, right? You have to account for it. You have to say, my circumstances are a result of my action or inaction, right? So it's always easier to say, a politician will save us.
Yes.
Right? It's easier.
It's
let's
crazy
just
to
do that,
think
right? Let's go protest our way out, right? Here's my responsibility. I'm going to grab a sign. I'm just going to protest. Yeah, but what are you actually doing? What are you doing to become that change?
I know.
that you're demanding of everybody else.
I know.
You're pointing out their immorality. What have you done to change your immorality? You're pointing out their evil heart. What have you done to correct your evil heart?
Exactly.
Right? And so
Yeah.
it's always easier to point it to externalize and say, they'll save it, they'll change it, they need to change it, it's their issue, they created it. No, we're all in a collective here, and we've helped create the ambiance of what we're in relation to the political environment, in relation to the, the turmoil that's around us, in relation to the environment, whatever it is. We've been a part of it in one way or another, either for the good or for the bad. We've either helped propel something forward or helped hold it at bay based on our personal actions. But I want to talk about, real quick, I just want to broach the topic surrounding the fear that comes with it, where, your father's saying, you keep on speaking, they're going to kill you. Well, me and my siblings would have conversations saying, I wonder when they're going to kill dad.
Yes.
Right? Because he refused to stop speaking. Yeah. Right? And then I end up in the circumstances where I then had to speak out. But I come to the realization that when you fear death, you cease to live.
That's right. You have to live. You have to die to live.
Yeah.
Like die to that attachment and the strength of attachment to the lower parts of yourself.
Yeah.
Then you truly live.
It's interesting. The very self-preservation that comes into play to try to prevent harm, to limit risk, actually does the exact opposite, where we don't live.
We become constricted.
Exactly.
It's like a stress response.
Enslavement.
We're armoring ourselves and constricting our viewpoints and everything.
Yeah. We are literally putting on our own shackles,
Yep,
our shackles of our own creation, through trying to preserve life by minimizing risk. As soon as we break out of that, we're free. We're free to speak. When we no longer fear death, and that's actually the most liberating thing that one can do, I find, in life, is to no longer fear death and realize there's probably 100%. Something far greater 100%. On the other side anyways, and we're here for a purpose, and we ought not to allow, the fear of the physical, diminishing to preserve or prevent us from being able to rise up spiritually who we need to be.
And when you, sorry, I'm talking.
Yeah,
See, I promised. But the allegory of the cave in Plato and the Republic.
Yep.
When he talks about so basically, there's a whole bunch of ways of telling the story, but basically there's all these guys in a cave. You've probably heard it before. And then all they know as their whole life are shadows on the wall of light coming behind them. They don't even know what they look like or anything other than the shadows on the wall. So their whole reality is shadow. And then say in this case, you could say one of the chains that is binding one of them to the rock, it rusts out. And the guy is able to stand up and turn around and walk out of the cave, and he sees this absolutely stunning, beautiful world. And he can't believe it. It's just almost bedazzles you, almost give him a heart attack. There's a frog in the well story that's similar. Anyway, so he goes back. He's going to tell these people, oh my God, this is not real life. Everything's real life out there. And then they think he's crazy and try to knock him off. Yeah. That was happening, I think, back 2020, when people were trying to light up all over the world that saw the signs of psychological manipulation, social engineering. Yep. They saw the signs coming before that with the practice run in 2019. So then you say, okay, they're trying their best. And some people just couldn't do it because it's too much pain, and they take themselves, fear of death. Also fear of ego death, because it's not just about dying physically, right? The fear of your reputation and everything. Some people are really aligned with that. Instead of character, they care about what other people think of them. That's what we got to die to. Die to what other people think of you. Focus on character rather than reputation. Reputation means nothing because it's the sign of the masses. So this idea now, though, in that allegory of the cave, before you would go back to the cave and you felt like nobody's listening. Now, say you have 100 people in that cave, you go back to the cave. Maybe you had one person out of 1,000 before, say 1,000 people. Now I feel like it's getting pretty hard. That you go back to that cave and you say, are you sure you don't want to come outside here? Because it's pretty nice out here.
Yep.
And then I feel like they're getting it. And I feel super confident, not just hopeful. I already know it's happening. Now it's just how it happens.
Yep.
We don't have to control the demolition like people that are in control are trying to do. We have to accelerate, but in a way that's gentle with people.
Right.
That cleansing, nourishing, and balancing, rather than stimulate, suppress, cut and burn of the modern way, is no. People are there to talk to. And people are there for anybody that's starting to see all these different things, and that left and right is all BS. It's one side of the same thing. There's two sides of the same thing, is that there's a whole bunch of people that have different aptitudes that can talk to different people in a nice way. Nobody's all mad at everybody. Everybody just wants people to stop into this blaming and horrible, malicious kind of behavior and maligning people, to see, hey, stop. If you want to hear things, you're going to resonate with somebody, and just open up a dialogue.
Yep.
And you'll see that, whoa, it's a really friendly place with a lot of these people, because people just want to finally talk again, and to see that people are actually listening and back and forth again, not an argument, it's a discourse. And I already see it happening, because I do a lot of lectures, so do you. The sentiment has changed so much in the past few months, especially in a big, big way. And I think it has to do with a lot of stuff going on in the media with all these clowns that are running the show. Like, for instance, that right now in the political climate, we have basically a banker and a billionaire on the other side that are at the helm of each of our supposed sovereign countries. And you think, what the heck? That is like the definition to me kind of a clown show. We're in the midst of a clown show, and people are defending all these different characters from the left and right, liberal, conservative. It's all a long game. And plus, you should see all of them are fueling the belief that you can deal with things and change things for the better in these times by changing the political party.
Right.
Which both of you and I saw, it doesn't change anything. The bureaucracy's in place. They do the same things to us as they said they wouldn't do. And basically got to see then, what do you do about that? Well, then you don't. It's basically just non-compliance.
Well, as soon as you liberate yourself from the whole facade surrounding politics, you're left with a lot more energy and time to put elsewhere into things that will actually make a difference in your life.
Exactly.
And that was one of the things through COVID. I was invited to numerous rallies to speak at these freedom rallies. And I would generally just deny it, because I just, the message that I was going to convey was a message that a lot of people weren't ready to hear.
Yes, totally. Has to be right timing.
Right. But I did take the opportunity twice. And the one time there was a few thousand people there. And I remember distinctly as I'm talking, because I was following like Dr. Lee Merritt and whatever, right? And they're all talking about what's going on with COVID and the facts and the evidence and this and that. And you've got all these people, and they're going to go on a walk after the rally, right? Where we have this big stage and this big open field and big PA system. And then they're going to go for a walk with all these picket signs. And my message was basically taking individual responsibility.
Yes.
Change who you are as an individual, empower yourself, gather together with like-minded people, generate a sense of community, start to become off-grid, whatever, like get into these.
And people like that. When they start seeing that it's working, first they make fun of it, but when they see it keeps, whoa, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Well,
you seem happy too.
A lot. So there was people that were willing to receive it, but I distinctly remember the last one I did, and it was actually quite funny, where there was one individual who was standing near the stage, and all of a sudden he starts yelling, "What you talking? What you talking?" Right? Because he couldn't grasp what I was even saying, because everyone else is saying, take back our power, protest, politicians, blah, 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 whatever. And I'm saying, pull back from it.
Yeah.
Stop engaging in that system. You're fueling it. You think that's where your salvation is going to come from, is by going to politics? You think they're going to come and save you? No.
No, they're not. And to me, like you say, the protest idea, right? Even if you got all the heart and everything in it, yes, it's part of a picture, but if you have those old pictures of the rulers of places and they're looking at all the people with the pitchforks and shovel protesting, instead of saying, oh, we got something to worry about, they go, oh, look at those guys down there protesting.
Right.
Totally
right. Like,
work at all.
It's entertainment in essence.
Yeah.
Did it change?
No.
What they're going to? No.
And also in the belief that you don't have the power, that disempowerment idea, it comes with resentment. And so in a lot of people that you meet that are maybe part of this, there's a deep, I think a few things I've noticed is that there's anger, but there's also a superiority complex, that whatever they believe, everything else is BS. And that's what I think people that caught up in politics, they literally will fall in line with whatever they're told from that party, which is totally, it's a sign of ignorance, 100%, because not everything that someone's going to state to you, especially on that level, could be a fact in reality. And so everything's being used as tools of manipulation. When people figure that out, it's been used forever.
Yep.
I think, but that's what before you were thought of as a conspiracy theorist again. Now you're thought of as someone who's, what do they know? It's more of that. And yes, you're going to have those hardliners that stick in that are the squeaky wheel, the mouthy ones and the judgmental ones, or simply the bots. There's just tons and tons and tons of bots that they're not even people. And you think they're people, and that's why they use such aggressive language, because they're trying to provoke emotional responses, which makes you more easily controlled. Again, anytime so the idea of placing, I think this is, to me, if we want to get out of this, the idea in the West that we have to place so much importance on our emotions, like they're a true and realistic thing, because they're not real, that you can't grab an emotion.
Right.
You can feel certain things, but then you conceptually add labels to it, which then make you angry at someone, or he or she caused me to be angry or attached, or whatever, impatient. Nope. It's basically, you get the feeling of the energy that runs through you. If you let it flow, that's let it flow. Let it flow you through it. Don't put a thing on it. Don't attach it to something. You can use that energy for stuff like this to rise up and feel like you have some sense of power. Because anytime they keep draining your energy, it's like a river that keeps on shooting and losing off in rivulets. Or a better one, say you are like a pulse that runs through a copper wire. And that's who you are as a pulse. And then you have the insulator, like the rubber or whatever that's wrapped in it, red, green, yellow, blue, whatever. Is that inside you, that pulse is really strong and can fire up, say, a light at the end in huge brilliance. But if you keep making cracks in that insulation and you keep on losing power, which is whenever they make you emotional or react or give your power to somebody else, it's basically like draining the power. By the end, you can't even light up a little light.
Great
so
metaphor.
Right? So you're basically know that all it takes then is get out the electrician's tape and wrap that thing again, and you have full power. So it doesn't take recreating your whole life, dealing with every single emotion, and I'm not worthy, all this kind of stuff. We are worthy. And the idea is we're like a pulse, and we have to capture the pulse. If we do that and ignite with people that have a pulse, it's unstoppable. And it's not just, this is not hyperbolic or anything. This is about, we all are powerful enough that when we rise together and be authentic, and not say I'm authentic, right? Just to be like what you feel is true in your heart. That their mind will then follow the heart. Right now, the head is following the heart. That's always been an issue. Is people thinking that they control everything with their head, and that's just BS. And we know it. That's what the idea of this one word. I think this is a cool word. When you talked about we're not doing enough self introspection, basically. The word for introspection in Sanskrit is samprajanya, and then the opposite is asamprajanya, which means non-introspection. You're not looking inside enough. Or in Tibetan, it's shishimayimpa. And so basically, those words are cool. Asamprajanya, shishimayimpa. Recognizing that we're not actually looking inside. And that we're blaming the world for everything. And we're just spewing stuff. And all of these different things that's so obvious are about manipulative techniques.
Absolutely.
And every time you give a minority group a huge amount of attention, it's an obvious trigger that the government and people that are in control and power are using that to wedge you.
It's a weapon. Absolutely.
And so we can see that today, what's happened. Instead of focusing on all the things that we're focusing on, about all these different minority groups getting all these special rights and all that kind of stuff. What about people that don't have houses? What about people that can't afford food? Right. What about war veterans they're being treated like they're nothing? All that kind of,
this is weighty matters.
That's community. And so we're trying to destroy community and the idea of tradition. We're throwing the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. Yeah, there's negatives and everything, but there's so much positive. And we did not commit the sins of our forefathers. And that whole 7 generations of guilt, that's not true, because at the base of things, matter is not even real. That's scientific. So basically, it's in state of flux and flow. So the idea that you keep on making everyone responsible for all of their ancestors is BS. That keeps the game alive. That's their game.
Yeah.
They keep playing us to make it look like we all have skin in the game against each other. No, we don't. That's in the past. And people learn from the past too. They're not their forefathers because people learn. Yes, certain things of trauma can keep escalating, but they can also change. Again, that idea we can change is you got that story about one guy's an alcoholic, one guy's not an alcoholic, brothers, and the dad was an alcoholic. And they asked the two sons separately. They got that son that's an alcoholic, why are you an alcoholic? Because my dad was an alcoholic. And they asked the other son doesn't drink, why don't you drink? Because my dad was an alcoholic.
Yeah.
So again, we can't keep blaming everything like that. We can break the chain at any moment.
Yes.
Instead of, anybody who watched the Game of Thrones and Daenerys Targaryen, people don't like that or whatever, certain things, but there's certain pretty powerful marks in it. She said, even though she turned out bad in the end, she said, I'm not here to change the wheel. I'm here to break the wheel. So what does that mean? It doesn't make you some violent. It means that you're no longer allowing people to maintain power over you that have no real power over you.
Yep.
And that when you operate from the heart, you're outside of their game.
Yep.
What does that take? It takes enough people acting like mosquitoes to realize that they can be a problem.
Yep.
And stand up and it can be entirely peaceful ways. But that's when standing up in confidence, not in blame. Like, for instance, I heard there's certain people that would never participate throughout time in negative things like anti-war, be more pro-peace. So just show people what you want by being that. Like Nelson Mandela said, be the change you want to see in the world.
It's a misquote of Gandhi.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Gandhi didn't say it.
Gandhi, that's right.
And that's actually a great example. I was thinking about the example of Gandhi
effect.
when you were Now, Nelson Mandela had a lot of good things to say as well. Yeah. In fact, actually, this is interesting because part of the message, I would say, is learn to go with the intuition, because right after I was charged, I felt impressed upon, not because of any external force. I felt impressed upon within.
Me too.
So this is February 2012 or February 2013, right? I need to go and purchase the works of Gandhi and the works of Martin Luther King. And I thought, well, logically, that would also include the works of Nelson Mandela. So I went and bought all of those books. And I did get through the works of Martin Luther King and Gandhi. And phenomenal the lessons that you learn from that when we rise up together,
yes,
right, that it's unstoppable. You can kill.
It doesn't matter.
Because there'll be someone else.
The pulse is already there.
Exactly. It's within, right? There's already a spirit to it that it's moving in the right direction. And, there was people that were mowed down by machine guns.
Yeah, brutal.
And yet they continued on in India. It actually only further propelled it, right? When the dark forces trying to hold it down, the more they did so, the more it rose up. So there's lessons to be learned there. But yeah, so Gandhi is quoted for saying, be the change that you want to see in the world. He actually didn't say that. It's much more comprehensive what he said. And that is an encapsulation.
Condensed into it, like a paraphrase.
Right.
Yeah,
but when you actually take his full length sentence, it's phenomenal.
Yeah. I feel like sometimes, that again, taking things out of context, which I've never read Gandhi, is when you actually read some of these source texts, which I've been doing forever now, when I went into comparative religion and philosophy, the source texts say nothing like what you think. Here is a big misquote that I've said on other shows that I think you'll love. Has to do with the whole masculine, feminine, the dark and the light kind of sides inside you. Is that story that people have heard about the two wolves. When the grandfather says to the little grandson, right? He says, there's two wolves that live inside you. A white wolf that represents, virtue and love and all that kind of stuff you think of as virtuous. And there's a black wolf. And that represents darkness, violence, all that kind of stuff. So
and the grandson says, which one wins?
Yeah. So he says, which one wins? And he says, the one you feed. So that's the common way of telling it amongst us. So it's basically a hard and fast rule with good and evil. But the ancients didn't think like that. They said everything's nuanced instead of flow. And in every side, there's a polarity. So in the white wolf, like I mentioned earlier, the white wolf represents, yes, love and openness and wisdom and beauty and togetherness and community, all these different things, empathy. But when it's on its negative pole, it represents resentment and constriction, fear, and all that kind of thing, right? So it's basically, there's two different poles. And then same as the black wolf, represents, yes, violence and hostility, and aggression, and patience, all the things you'd think of the fight response kind of. But in the positive light, it represents confidence, piercing intellect, skillfulness, joy, enthusiasm, right? So there's two sides. So anyway, when they tell the story, he says, which one do you feed? He says, which one do you feed? The grandson says. He says, you feed them both. Mm-hmm. Because if you just feed the white wolf, thinking it represents all the positive parts of the white wolf,
right,
the black wolf is left there thinking you're trying to make it look bad. Right. And so it's left there lurking. It's waiting for the opportunity, as it tells in the ancient, I think it's Lakota, it's waiting for the opportunity for the white wolf to have something happen that knocks it down. Then it jumps out. When it jumps out, it's on its negative pole side.
Right.
So you see that a lot. When people keep repressing all of these energies and that come up as if they're bad and violent, it's the concepts that make, and the train of thought that keep latching on and blaming people. But if you just feel the energy, if you don't have the black wolf, so to speak, you won't act.
Right.
Everything has to be passive and peaceful and everything. Otherwise you get stressed out like that. And then you constrict. Yeah. And that causes like depression and anxiety, all that stuff. So if you get the black wolf, you recognize the black wolf, keep feeding it, they're both happy and they both stay working together in balance. So this idea, again, this manipulative technique of calling everything toxic masculinity like they've done, that actually represents the piercing positive side, the confident, skillful, acting when you need to act, not enabling people. That's a distortion of ancient teaching that works to manipulate. So I love it because I feel like that's what I would love everybody to hear in these. If you can rise up and you recognize both sides of you, and you don't keep labeling the things, just go with the energies, the flows, like prana, chi, lung, pneuma, spiritus, whatever. You go with that. It can fire you up, and then you ignite your heart. Like, you don't get trapped up in anger and hostility and blame and all this stuff. And why am I bad? All this back in my past. Yeah, you can do that, but it takes forever. What if you just actually engage the energies and transform them into this positive idea? And I think sometimes you do that naturally when you believe in something enough, when you're confident in something enough, and you feel purposeful. Those energies just transform and allow you to keep going. Mm-hmm. So I feel like we are obviously partaking of that. It's like an ancient, it's a legacy that we have, or a lineage, an ancient lineage we have within us that allows us to keep lit up in face of adversity. Yep. And then if you trust that more, like you said, you do, you trust it, you don't listen to anybody else. Yep. If you let that roll, you're going with it.
It gets me thinking, and this goes back to, I believe the book is called, or the set of essays is Power to Love, if I'm recalling properly. It's been well over a decade since I've read it, and that's from Martin Luther King. But one of the essays in there is actually about antithesis, and that we need to be men, women of antithesis, antithetical. And he uses, I believe he uses the particular verse, be gentle as doves, but yet wise as serpents.
Yes.
Right? Because that is complete antithesis. And with the white wolf, the gray wolf, you have these two things that are antithetical to each other, and yet the power is found in the synthesis of the two coming together in balance.
Like the lion and the lamb.
Like the lion,
right?
Exactly. And what's interesting is Yeshua, in the book of Revelation, is actually entitled both things within one or two verses. He is the Lion of Judah, and yet the Lamb as if slain, showing that antithetical nature. Right? And that's what we're supposed to be, is we are supposed to be dangerous and yet gentle, right?
And it's obvious too, because if we are merciful and peaceful, and yet there's a ferocity to that, you don't engage thinking, how's this going to affect me if I behave this way right now? Even though you feel the thrust of it coming up. It's easy for me to say, if you have a hardcore and a hard, fast way of thinking that this is wrong and this is right, okay, so you say murder, you say rape or murder is wrong. But then you have a person who's about to rape and kill someone in your house, and the only way you can stop that is to kill them. Mm-hmm. What do? Do you say that you killed that person, and that is the sin, or do you let the other person die? No, you don't. If you let the person die, that's not being in the flow and being a spiritual person or anything. That's being the opposite. You just let someone suffer, and horribly so, because you wanted to stay in this peaceful aspect that is actually an form of escape. Yep. That's why sometimes you know what the danger of some of the spiritual practices too is that if you engage in a way that you're trying to maintain that white fluffy pole of the white wolf, and forget everything else, you're doing everything wrong. And they talk about that. Oftentimes, you need to get into peaceful space and to start, if it's prayer, meditation, mantra, whatever, to center yourself fully, especially if you're not used to this. And if you're fully distracted, you need to get non-distracted. But in that, then, like you said, it just starts coming out of you. We all have it, that there's like a funnel, strong funnel, a pulse in us that it wants you to engage in a certain way. And like you said, if you're confident in that, sometimes it will be strong. It's never malicious. They talk about this, like there's different aspects of body, mind, and speech, right? Body, speech is like energies and everything they call it. But say there's 3 of body, like about stealing, taking what's not yours, killing, or sexual misconduct, raping, and things like that. And then there's speech is, harsh speech, idle speech, divisive speech, and basically false speech, kind of idea. And then there's the last one, which is malicious intent. Wrong view, like that you don't believe there's actions and consequences, and covetousness, like you want what's to be happy because you feel like you have poverty mentality. Those 3 at the end can never ever be activated in a state, because that means you have your mindset is outside of what is natural to the heart. So the idea is when you're acting, you do things that might make you look bad sometimes because you know it's the right thing. And I feel like standing up when government's trying to be like the big daddy mummy figure, and they're obviously not a very good parent. Like this way, I think government, if they're trying to be a parent and take care of everybody, they're obviously a really bad parent. They're not a good parent because everybody's really divided right now. And nobody wants to follow that kind of thing. But to me, it's made up of people. And so the more that we can appeal to the human being with what you said, when you appeal to the pulse of who you are, if we can ignite the pulse in them, and then they ignite the pulse in us, that pay it forward thing, then we're doing something right. If you're doing podcasts and everything, talking about all the negative stuff and get people riled up against each other, which is a lot of podcasts, obviously, and AI wants to get involved and create tons of podcasts that look real and everything, is that, it's easy to then keep dividing you. How do we get rid of that? I think talking like, this is what our goal is, by the way. That's why I want to do this together, is Truehope and our company Purica, but through our podcasts that we're powering, is try to get people back together and out of that mindset of following these people that obviously want us to be divided. And lots of you already know this, speaking of the choir, but I'm saying we're trying to come up with solutions, and we'd like to get different people on both our podcasts and keep this going that actually can help to change. But having said that, it's already changing. It's already happening. I would just like to accelerate it,
right,
or be part of that.
And there's ideologies that can be communicated that would be empowering. There's understanding of physical nutrition that, here's an interesting thing, right? Like in our line of work, we've worked with so many people that have gone through counseling and it's failed miserably. But yet when they nutrate their bodies, now what they have to hear is more empowering. So now counseling actually will have an impact. Why? Because they're in a better state of mind, and an acceptable state of mind where they're able to accept the information
100%.
That's coming before them. And so there's one element here, because you were talking about emotions, and you'd use the example of a cable with the insulation, being compromised, and you're grounding out, and you're not getting the flow of energy up to light up the light bulb.
Full
right?
distraction.
And one of the things that I've come to realize in my journey is the enslavement to emotion that takes place, and how that ultimately misguides us. Because if we're allowing emotions to guide us, we're going the wrong direction.
Totally.
Emotions are a tool to be employed, but you have to harness them. You have to subdue them, and then employ them as you see fit to put you in a state of motion.
Absolutely.
But
energy and motion.
Right, exactly.
We're blocking the state of motion by constantly putting concepts on top of emotion, then acting out in those ways. Those are not actually emotions. Those are constricted, caged emotions, like you said, that then fuel up and cause a whole bunch of problems. If we let energy flow, energy and motion, without attaching a whole bunch of labels and things to it and blame and everything, then it's just pure energy.
Right. So a prime example of this would be, let's say 9/11, right? We're far enough out. Most people are emotionally disconnected from it that they can look at it more objectively. But even 10 years after it took place, only 15% or of the belief that it was an inside job or not what it was purported to be. Only 15% still 10 years after the fact. Now, we're well beyond that. There's a lot more people that are seeing, hey, logically, this doesn't line up at all, right? And so
they put a song to it. Remember? That's why it became more emotional. They put Enya's Only Time.
Oh, yeah.
Over and over and over they played to make you super emotional.
Yeah.
So it was really hard to let go. Because it's really wrapped in a song and everything inside you.
Yes. So the emotions will actually cloud the reality. And so if we are able to pare back the emotions, if we are in control of the emotions, say, okay, I want to feel something about this, but I'm not just going to give myself over to feeling this way based on what they're telling me. I'm going to try to use some logic first and employ some deductive reasoning. Yep. And now I'm going to look at the event, and then I'm going to dictate what emotions I should feel towards it. Now you've got empowerment, right? But now I'm going to reflect back, though, to a particular time in my life where I was dealing with my own mental health issues. I would have been incapable of doing that.
Yes.
Right?
That's the thing.
Because my brain was misfiring. It was a mess. My brain would have literally been a mess. I didn't know what I was waking up with from one day to the next. Am I going to be filled with rage? Now, if you want to talk about emotion, rage, uncontrollable rage, break some stuff, and, like I was out of control. Yeah. So there was no way that I could have pared back, thought clear, deducted what the reality is based on the information I have to put into the balances. And then say, this is the appropriate way to feel. They just did this. People died. Now I know where to direct my emotion as well, and who to direct it towards if there's an issue, right? And say, I'm rising up. I'm gonna shout from the rooftops. I'm gonna empower other people. But when we give ourselves over to emotion without the checks and balances,
and emotion, like you said, big one. Maybe we finish off with this because this is why we're in the health industry, is because you can approach different problems at different levels. I feel that nutrition and supplementation is powerful, but it's coming at it from a materialistic aspect, but it impacts you energetically, spiritually, mentally. And it's an easier way to come at things for most people because they won't address, but it also encourages you to do other things, meditation, prayer, everything like that. Yep. Is if you feel in pain, if you're distracted by some imbalance or discomfort, physically, mentally, whatever, that's related to mind or body or energy, then if you can, like you said, if you can address that with nutrition, supplementation, and also recognizing, because most of it is recognition, not control. Everything's about recognition, is recognizing that lack of blood sugar control is a strong feature in rage and inappropriate thinking and inability to sleep, stress reaction, everything. And the stress reaction actually drives your blood sugar, also what you eat, that trying to see how can I get blood sugar under control. And a lot of that can be to do with what, say with Empower Plus, a lack of nutrition. Because the lack of nutrition, so that's one thing I feel like we're trying to help people as our livelihood. So obviously, yes, we are selling things, but it feels good to be doing that because we're helping people to get control of maybe something that's actually quite simple. They're dehydrated. Blood sugar's out of control. They have a lack of nourishment. Then you also deal with certain things that are involved. For anybody who meditates or sits for a long time studying knows that if you try to cross your legs and sit in a nice, steady, controlled pace, that eventually, sometimes quickly, if it's a back or whatever, it's going to start saying, what are you doing? Get out. So if you can give them, again, that's what we were doing with recovery. So, and then, or if your mind's going all sorts of directions in a depressive thought heavy or agitated thoughts or whatever, all over, it's very hard to rein that in at all to get any sense of centering. And then, like you said, I call it that hurricane effect. We're all like little hurricanes. The center, the eye of the storm, you see everything. You're not escaping anything. You see all of your emotions and thoughts and everything whirling around and all stuff that you're normally caught up in, but you're a silent observer in a way. You're looking at it happen, and then it starts coming down. You don't have a tendency to get caught up in it.
Yes.
If you're centered. To be centered, get back, body, mind, energy, all have to be in alignment. And what you and I said, we both got out of alignment during intense stress, which is easy to do, even for people like us that make the supplements. Sometimes you don't even take supplements because you're still caught up in it. Once you start doing certain things, it's undeniable the way that you feel.
Oh, yeah.
And if I and you, if we can do anything to help people get in that state, and that's part of our livelihood, I like that livelihood.
It's a beautiful thing.
It is a beautiful thing.
And you brought up an example that everybody can relate to, and that's the whole blood sugar thing. You will not find me making an important decision while I'm hangry.
You're hangry.
Absolutely not going to happen, because it's going to be a misguided decision.
I know.
And so how much, we see this when we have any dysfunction in the body, it's going to impact
Change everything.
the direction that we go.
Everything.
Regardless of whether they're cognizant of it or not. And I can look back and say, this is where I've gone wrong in my battles, and this is where I've gone right in my battles. And I can correlate that with where my mental headspace was, given how much I was nourishing my body and how much I was nourishing spiritually, right? Absolutely interconnected. You can't neglect one and flourish in the other, right?
Absolutely. I feel like that was an awesome podcast for me anyway. That was very, very enlightening, entertaining for ourselves, even if you don't resonate. So thank you very much. So again, Jason from Swallow the Truth. We'll have more conversations, the two of us. Try to keep them shorter. Maybe not. Might not be successful.
Well, maybe we'll break this one up into a few episodes. Who knows?
Yeah, do that too.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, David.
Well, thank you for having me on. And yeah, so David with Truecast or Truehope Cast, the official podcast of Truehope Canada. And it's a beautiful thing to be in, well, one, you're home here in the studio, but it's a beautiful thing to be in collaboration with
100%.
Other companies that are really just being a blessing to people. And ultimately, I mean, at the end of the day, we hear it, saving lives.
Yes.
Like we're changing lives.
Yes.
But in some instances when it's so dire,
100%.
we're saving lives. And that's such a beautiful thing to be a part of.
And we're both going to keep standing. So look forward to more of us.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks, David.
Thank you.
See you, everyone.